Welcome to Random But Memorable, a podcast from 1Password. I'm Sarah, one of the founders at 1Password.
I'm Roo, head of password manager development.
I'm Matt Davey, 1Password's chief experience officer.
I'm Anna, the producer behind the show.
And we're the hosts behind Random But Memorable. Together, we offer up bi-weekly security advice, interview special guests from the cybersecurity community, and round up the latest in security news with Watchtower Weekly. We may even play a silly security game or two. So sit back and enjoy the show. It's Blue Jays season. I don't know if you guys are watching baseball at all.
They're in line for the World Series, right?
No, they're going to the World Series.
They're going. They are going. Springer hit the dinger, and we're off to the World Series. Yep.
There's your intro, Anna.
I love it.
I actually would like that on the soundboard, please. Like, if I could log in and just, like, click on the soundboard and then hear that, I'd be happy.
Springer hit the dinger. I do hope that the people tuning in are looking forward to the Blue Jays winning. I think the Dodgers have a good team, and Shohei Ohtani is a heck of a player. He's a force to be reckoned with. So if you're not watching baseball, none of that will make any sense. We can talk about hockey.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's get into the show, shall we? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Random But Memorable. This episode is all about car hacking. Later in the show, we'll be joined by Joseph Cox, a journalist at 404 Media, to talk about all things automotive. Joseph will explain why and how cars have become rolling computers and what that means for hackers looking to break into them. Longtime listeners might recall that Joseph has been on the show before. We're delighted to have him back on and dive into another area of cybersecurity together. Before we jump into that discussion, we have a bit of news to announce. Random But Memorable. This is our last show. We are going off the air. Oh, no, sorry.
Rude. Rude.
Random But Memorable recently won a Gold Signal Award. A huge thank you for hanging out with us and supporting the show. It really means the world to us and the team at 1Password.
We're very happy.
Thank you.
God, I'm going to have to build another trophy shelf. I think is what's going to have to happen over here. We have so many at this point, and they're not light. These are heavy things.
I tried to tell Anna that I think I'd opt out this weekend, and like I'm fine not to receive it, and I think she looked really disappointed. It was the wrong thing to say. I think
it was. It's funny because last year for Christmas I put away a bunch of stuff so I'd have room to put all the Christmas decorations out, and then after I put the Christmas decorations out, I just never got around to putting the stuff back out. But one of the only things that made it throughout the whole transition between seasons was the Signal Award that we had from last year. And Jack had some buddies over the other day, and the one's like, "Is this your mom? Did she win it? Did she win an award? Like, what is this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, like they do a podcast. It's really cool. You should listen." And it was just like, I was like, yay. And so now I'm like, I can't wait to put this one beside that one and be like, our listeners do like us.
More things in life need your teenage boy voice, Sarah. Okay, let's get back on track and kick things off with another dose of Watchtower Weekly. Today's theme is video games and how cyber criminals are targeting players and developers alike. As always, you can find all the sources from all our news stories in the show notes. First, we're talking about a video game on PC that drained the cryptocurrency wallets of hundreds of players. The game was a 2D platformer called Block Blasters, which appeared on Steam in July. It soon had positive reviews, which strengthened its legitimacy.
Bleeping Computer reports that the game was then updated in August with malicious code. Players downloaded the update, thinking it was just another standard patch. Cybersecurity company G Data did some investigating and found that the attack used a batch file that first checked whether the PC had any antivirus software installed. If it didn't, further batch files were executed that collected browser extension and crypto wallet information. Matt, do you play PC games, and do you ever worry about malware coming in as part of the game?
So, I have a gaming PC, and I haven't used it in, ages. But when I started using it, I think I was playing like Minecraft or something like that. The problem was I would not play for like weeks, and then I would come back to it and like switch it on, And it's the worst thing to do for a computer because the time between, there was a bunch of updates and security updates, and I really should have been looking after it. But all I wanted to do when I switched it on was play the game. So no, I don't touch it anymore. It sits in a corner and I ignore it because I'm pretty sure I haven't updated the security patches and that type of stuff. So as soon as I plug it in, I'm probably going to need half a day to just, update everything. So I prefer the PlayStation, I think.
PlayStation has the same problem though, right? Where you haven't played it for a couple days and then you have to download a bunch of stuff.
Kind of.
I've found that it keeps itself updated pretty well in the background.
Yeah, it turns itself on overnight and then updates, which is pretty cool. I think you can do that to PC as well, but I don't know. Our next story is about Fortnite. I love Fortnite. I've probably sunk hundreds of hours into it. It's pretty bad. But it continues to also be one of the largest video games on the planet. If you didn't know, Fortnite has something called the Island Creator Program, which allows people from the community to create and upload their own maps. If lots of people engage with your island, Epic Games will give you a payout as a thank you. And so video game site Aftermath has reported that Epic Games is suing 2 island makers for artificially inflating engagement on their creations. In a legal complaint, the Fortnite maker has alleged that these 2 developers created fake bot players in order to earn tens of thousands of dollars in unwarranted payouts.
I can't be mad about this. They're not stealing from average players. They're not trying to download anything malicious, and they're creating fake islands, which, it's a fake world.
I think, at best, they maybe broke the agreement that you sign when you start playing.
Yeah. And then you shouldn't be able to do it anymore. But I think that there's a lot of players out there that have multiple accounts, and some of those accounts are just used for trolling or for certain types of play that you don't want to have on your main account. And I haven't played Fortnite, so I don't know. Is it easy to tell when you're up against someone who's a robot? Are you able to tell when you're playing a bot?
I think if you're a good player, you are able to tell. I probably end up shooting to the left of them just as much as they shoot to the right of me. So, let me throw it back to you, Sarah. Do you think this is a crafty way to make some cash, or are there easier ways to make this kind of money?
I feel like if you're a big Fortnite player and you're into doing things, this is a fun way to try and make some cash doing something that you're enjoying what you're doing. Where trying to get a job in the gaming industry is not as easy, to try and find a legitimate job. And half the time you find a job that you're going to do and it's not doing the cool stuff. It's doing, okay, if you could work on making the grass in the background look more grassy, that would be great. This is kind of something you can do on the side and have some fun. And I'm not a big fan of the scamming. Hopefully you're not designing an island that's there to, steal all your stuff as soon as you land on it. But
the final point we want to make around gaming is that developers themselves aren't immune to breaches. There have been some high-profile leaks over the years. For example, major footage from The Last of Us Part 2 was leaked in 2020 ahead of the game's release. Huge parts of GTA 6, which is likely to break records when it finally comes out, were released online in 2022. There's also Insomniac, the studio that makes the Spider-Man games, which was the victim of a ransomware attack in 2023. Clearly, this is a trend. Last October, Game Freak, the developer behind the Pokemon games, confirmed that its servers were hacked a few months prior. Why are criminals so keen to hack these studios? Are they always after the money, or could it be they just really want to know what a new game is like?
Both.
Yeah, I think it's got to be both.
Yeah, it's all about the money.
I think it's honestly both. Lots of people working on a piece of software, and I think these things also get hyped up. Were there huge parts of Grand Theft Auto 6, leaked? I haven't seen anything. That game feels like it's been in development for decades.
Well, I was just going to say, they were released online in 2022, which is 3 years ago. Is GTA 6 not out yet?
No, it's not out yet.
No.
So I think that's probably, people are also trying to hack to be is this actually being made? Is this on the back of someone's shelf? Is there any progress happening here? It's a fun way to make some money, but it's also gameplay. You want to know what's coming up next in gameplay. You want to be prepared. You don't want to... Last thing you want to do is, drop a lucky egg and hit your evolutions really hard on Pokemon Go when the next day an evolution task comes out, right? Y'all have been there? No?
Not that one, sorry. No.
I'm always interested when I see, random groups of people suddenly form and they're all wearing like battery packs connected to their phones. And then I remember Pokemon Go is there.
And then they start hammering on their phones. Like, it's like, boom, 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 boom. You gotta fight that battle. Yep. I think that's enough teenage. I was gonna say, I didn't get to use my teenage boy voice at all. Like, duh. Like, let's play some Fortnite. Let's go. Mom, you're such a bot.
You go more American as well. That's the thing I love about that. Let's go play some more Fortnite.
Let's go do it. Mom, you're such a bot.
Oh, man.
Have you been called a bot?
That was really something.
Have you?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. Jack will tell me. Are you sure, Mom? Because you sound like a bot right now. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
gosh.
I'm just trying to find out some answers here, kid. Like, just help me. So, all right. That is enough with the video game talk. It is time for some Crash Course, our segment where we break down some of the most important security concepts to try to make it a little bit more understandable. Today's topic is SIM swapping. You're probably familiar with multi-factor authentication. That's the one-time code that you're asked for to enter alongside your traditional username and password. So, fun fact, as an aside here, passkeys also count as multi-factor authentication for those of you using passkeys. SMS, so your text messaging to your phone, is a convenient way to receive and retrieve a two-factor code. But it's also the least secure. Criminals will often call up wireless network providers and pretend like they're the owner of a phone. They can lie and say something like, I lost my phone at a music festival and I need to transfer my number to a new SIM card. If the employee falls for their story, the number is swapped to the SIM card that the hacker actually controls. This means any future text messages, including those MFA codes, will go to that new SIM card, giving the hacker a way to sign into your online accounts. SIM swapping might sound a little scary, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't use MFA. Just avoid using SMS or text messages whenever you get the chance. And choose to store your codes in a different authenticator like 1Password or a dedicated two-factor authentication app. Roo, any tips or advice when using 1Password as an authenticator?
I do have some tips for using 1Password as an authenticator. I also have a tip to help prevent SIM swapping.
Ooh, yes, please.
I don't know if this is the same with every phone provider, but our phone provider allows you to set an extra security passcode on top of the username and password that you use to access the account. I have it stored in 1Password as a separate item. It's something I am asked for every time I go to log into my account is this extra code. And in fact, if I go into the store to do something like when we recently got our new phones, I had to go into the store to get a couple of them activated. And in the store, the employee was like, hey, can I get your passcode for this account so I can actually make these changes? You cannot make changes to the account without providing this passcode. And so if there is an option for you to do so, you should totally go and investigate if there's an extra security passcode that you can set on your account that prevents changes from being made without that password being provided. It's really, really nice.
Nice. That is a good tip.
Yeah.
Because how often are you doing that, right? Like,
it's not very often.
Once a year at most, if you get a new phone every year, and I don't think people do that anymore. So it's a good way to, makes your moment a little more difficult, but it makes your life a lot easier.
Exactly. Yes. So yes, like 1Password works as an authenticator. So if you've ever been setting up multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication, and you have an option to use an app, sometimes you'll see this as a QR code that you can scan to set it up. You can do this right with 1Password. You go to the item for the service that you're setting up two-factor authentication for, you edit it, and you can add a one-time passcode setting in 1Password. We will scan the code and then add that one-time password to that item. And then anytime you're logging in, 1Password will provide that authentication code automatically for you in many cases. So you don't have to worry about getting emailed a code. You don't have to worry about getting texted a code. 1Password has it. It's stored securely. It makes signing in more secure and also really seamless because we just autofill that stuff directly for you.
I was going to say the autofilling is magic.
It's really great. Yeah.
That's really good.
Turns out that still tends to be a wonderful thing that exists that we have built. So yes.
Yay.
All right. Let's jump into our conversation with Joseph Cox. The car industry is massive and vehicles are incredibly valuable. So perhaps it's not surprising that criminals are always looking for new ways to steal them. This week, Nick from our community team is back to talk to Joseph Cox, a great reporter from 404 Media, a publication that covers really unique cybersecurity stories. Joseph has reported on car hacking and is the ideal guest to walk us through what's happening in the real world. So with that, I'll hand over to Nick.
Returning to the show today is Joseph Cox. Joseph is a hacking, crime, and privacy journalist, as well as a podcaster over at 404 Media. When he was last on the show, we discussed his best-selling book, Darkwire, which is all about an app called Anom and how it was used for the largest sting operation ever. We will link that episode in the show notes in case you missed it. But today we're shifting gears. Please forgive the pun, and diving into something completely different, the underground world of car hacking. So welcome back to the show, Joseph.
Thank you so much. Did you just come up with that shifting gears pun right now? Because that was legitimately good. I'm not going to lie.
I wish I did. I have to peel back the curtain a little bit and say we do prep some of these intros, so I can't take the glory for that one, I'm afraid.
I still enjoyed it for what it's worth.
So you've covered car hacking quite a bit. For listeners who are maybe new to this topic, what exactly do we mean and what exactly do you mean when you say car hacking? Is it simply trying to unlock a car and start the engine, or can it mean something much more elaborate, like are criminals trying to remotely watch a car's parking cameras and that sort of thing? Like, just give us a bit of context in terms of what does the term mean in practical terms?
Yeah, it's quite a broad spectrum. I think it would apply to all of the above, basically, of what you just said. I personally focus much more on the hackers and the criminals who are developing exploits or using some piece of hardware to unlock and then drive away with the vehicle. I just find that pretty interesting. I'm always interested in the intersection between digital and physical crime, and driving off of somebody's car is pretty physical, so it's a good intersection of those. But yeah, there's other stuff as well. There's all of these privacy issues with modern vehicles as well. And I suppose you could say that car hacking also includes getting into the back end of one of these services and seeing all of the location of these vehicles, something that cybersecurity researchers have done. I think all of that would apply. I'm just personally more focused in the get in the car, maybe steal stuff from the car, and then potentially drive away as well. Definitely the unlocking. That's my focus.
Cool. Since you've been covering this topic, like, how has car hacking evolved? Something which I read and hear about a lot is just how cars are becoming much smarter and that they're now essentially rolling computers. I remember in particular during COVID, car manufacturers were fighting for chips alongside laptop makers and smartphone makers too. And that just really emphasized how technological cars are. So yeah, what impact has that had on hackers trying to break into these things?
Yeah, so car hacking is funny because it's not even strictly linear. If you remember, years and years ago at this point, Andy Greenberg at Wired did this piece and an accompanying video where two security researchers remotely broke into a vehicle he was driving and I think took control. It's been a long time since I saw that video, but I think everybody has basically seen it. And again, what was that, like 10 years ago? Something like that. So you would think, oh, wow, now all of the Teslas in the world or all the Waymos in the world are going to get hacked or something. It's like, well, that didn't actually happen. So you had those really extreme examples early on. It was in a controlled environment. It wasn't in the wild, obviously. But then you do have lots of researchers showing, hey, look, we can remotely break into a Tesla or whatever. But then you have sort of the real world criminal elements who are using devices to unlock vehicles, using devices to start engines and drive off, and that sort of thing. So even though it's like a really wide mix of different techniques and attacks and hardware, it's not linear in that, well, they just got more sophisticated or whatever. It's really, really varied. And of course, when it comes to car manufacturing, there are so many variables of so many different manufacturers that some of them are going to have better security than others. So it's an incredibly varied ecosystem when it comes to security and hacking as well.
Yeah, you've just talked about there about how there's a lot of variance, maybe even between brands. But if I had to make you pick, like, compare a car which maybe I grew up with as a child, which was completely analog, right? Literally key, physical key in the door. And then a car today with all the sophistication that's attached to that. Was it easier to steal a car, let's say 20, 30 years ago than it is today? Or do the two things kind of work in parallel where maybe there's more vulnerabilities for hackers to exploit, but also cars have got better defenses than they had 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's not straightforward to answer, but I would lean towards the latter in that, yes, cars have got more secure or whatever, but there is so much more attack surface now with the entertainment systems, the infotainment systems, the connectivity to all of these various services, and then just how the vehicles function, turning on, unlocking, the engine running, all of that sort of thing, where with the Kia boys, well, that's a somewhat recent development over the past, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, something like that. People weren't doing that 20 years ago. Or maybe they were and we just didn't know about it because we didn't have TikTok.
We didn't hear about it.
Right. Well, there's a chicken and egg problem almost because there's a social media element of, well, now these kids will do it more because it goes viral on TikTok. So then they're incentivized to steal more cars, whereas before they didn't have that incentive. I would say, yes, it's difficult, but depending on the vehicle, it might be easier today. And maybe I'm going to regret saying that and somebody's going to correct me. But I think that's my vibe based on my reporting.
Yeah, we're mostly today going to be talking about unlocking cars, but I did want to go back to, you mentioned a little earlier about, potentially tracking cars' locations and that sort of thing. Do you see, is that something that hackers are interested in? Like if they could try and steal and exploit more of the data that's being collected now by modern cars? Or is that something which still feels maybe a little bit of a ways off?
It's definitely something that cybersecurity researchers look into. I remember I've actually done some attacker in the middle work with a certain car location app several years ago, and that showed me the location of vehicles as well, and I was able to find people's likely home addresses or work addresses, that sort of thing. That being said, obviously, I'm a journalist doing that. I haven't really seen criminals turning to, let's get the location data of vehicles. Because in the end, what are they going to do with that? They're probably going to use it for blackmail. And maybe that would be, we found your home address. They've got way quicker ways to find your home address than do it through the location data of your vehicle. But who knows? Maybe it could be useful later on, but I haven't seen that in the criminal elements that I sort of speak to.
You've written a story on 404 Media about the Flipper Zero. Before we go any further, we should probably explain, one, what that device is, but two, how it's designed, primarily for good security purposes.
Yeah, the Flipper Zero is basically a Swiss Army knife of penetration testing. I've long wanted to own one, I just haven't got around to buying it. I've bought various other pieces of pen testing and hacking gear over the years, but you can kind of do, well, not everything, but a lot of stuff with this single tool. And of course, that's the attraction, because if you are on a physical pen test, say you're trying to get into a Fortune 500 company or a bank or whatever, and you have to, I'm making a hypothetical scenario, you would need to bypass the security, then plug in a USB stick into the server, and yes, that's the scope of the pen test there. It's better if you just have one piece of gear that could probably help you do a bunch of things. And the Flipper Zero can do that. There's NFC capability in there, Wi-Fi, all of these other sorts of attacks. So it is used every day by professional security professionals for that. Criminals have also noticed this technology, and of course, as is always basically been the case in information security, a legitimate penetration testing tool can absolutely be flipped around and used by more malicious parties, and that's what is happening here with car hacking.
It sort of reminds me almost of the Raspberry Pi, right? Where it's like there's so much potential in it, you could use it for almost anything, right? For good and for bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned Raspberry Pi, and this isn't a focus of the story, it's literally just one sentence, but a partner to the hacker and developer I spoke to does develop the same tech for the Raspberry Pi. Right. So it's just that the Flipper Zero is such a great, solid, self-contained package that it's easier, I presume, for car hackers to use that because, it's just this nice little bit of tech. I download the software, I use it. I don't have to, get a Raspberry Pi, plug in a keyboard, a mouse, a monitor. That sounds like a massive pain, especially for these people who may not be the most technologically sophisticated. They're trying to steal a car. You know what I mean? They're not trying to run a new flavor of Linux on the Raspberry Pi. They want to steal a vehicle.
So do you have an idea for who is ultimately responsible for kind of twisting this research and ethical hacking device into one that can be used for malicious purposes?
Yeah, so I only know his first name, or at least the first name that he gives, and it's Daniel. It's this guy who says he was the original creator of this new piece of firmware for the Flipper Zero, I think called Unleashed. And the idea was that the Flipper Zero is great, but we want to do even more powerful stuff with it. So Daniel says he made this piece of firmware. There's all of this other drama that I haven't really looked into, where apparently somebody else took over the development of the firmware and kicked him out. And sounds interesting. I haven't had time to look into it. But he says he does that. And then on the side, he also sells the capability for unlocking vehicles that we're talking about. And his partner, a guy called Darrow, I think is how you would pronounce it, he also sells that, but for Raspberry Pis as well. And at least Daniel is located in Russia. He says he's in Russia. I looked at videos he uploads to YouTube, and I could see that there were road signs for Moscow Airport in the background. So I'm going to guess he's in Russia as well. I don't know where Darrow is. I asked, are you in Russia as well? He said no, but he declined to elaborate further. But, you know, if you want to be really general, Russian/Eastern European cybercriminals, something like that.
And from what you learned, is this something that works on most cars, only some cars? What percentage of the cars that are on the road today might be susceptible to something like this?
Yeah, so I don't have a percentage for overall, but Daniel did provide this PDF, which is also available on Darrow's website, that lays out what they say are the brands and the models, the specific vehicles that are vulnerable to this sort of attack. So it works on a lot of cars, basically. I couldn't tell you the whole industry, percentage-wise, but looking at this spreadsheet, it does appear to work on a lot of vehicles out there on the road.
When something like this comes to light and is widely known, how quick are car manufacturers to respond to that? Is this something that they're getting better at? I mean, I mentioned earlier about how cars are becoming smarter. Presumably that then also requires them to get more serious about security too, and actually get on top of these vulnerabilities when they're known.
Yeah, I think it's varied. I mean, obviously you see car manufacturers do recalls. There was a Cybertruck recall somewhat recently. I do think car manufacturers care about this sort of thing. We've seen it where other sorts of car unlocking attacks have been maybe not patched, but they have been mitigated somewhat over the years. But with this one, to get a little bit more specifics on the attack it's using, it's sort of a fundamental problem in that there's something called rolling codes, which is the key fob will generate a new code every time. I guess some sort of analogy would be a one-time password or, you know, a fresh 2FA token. And, well, even if they got my old 2FA token, they don't have the new one, so they can't get into my car or whatever. What this tool is doing, which has been installed on the Flipper Zero or the Raspberry Pi, is that because Daniel says he has bought source code for related to unlocking the vehicles, he's managed to figure out basically the algorithm that generates those rolling codes. So it's almost like he has the 2FA secret. So he can then just predict what the new rolling code is. And to go back to your question about car manufacturers, you know, response to this, most of them didn't reply. I think maybe 3 or 4 did, and they mostly just said, yeah, we're aware of it, and, you know, it's not going to impact the most recent vehicles, that sort of thing, or we're not aware of it and we have no further comment. That said, being able to figure out the next rolling code, I know that seems like a pretty fundamental issue to me. Now, of course, they could go and then fix that and change the algorithms, make them more robust or whatever, but I don't know if the manufacturers have done that. Maybe they have. I don't want to speak out of turn. I just don't know whether they've addressed this specific attack yet or not.
Something I think about a lot is, especially now, cars are getting more sophisticated, but I also see brands are switching the platforms of the infotainment systems and that sort of thing. And there's even some cars where your owners are being told, hey, you're coming to kind of like end-of-life support for this software stack that your car is on. As time goes on, there's going to be more and more cars on more and more different software stacks, even within the same brand. And these manufacturers will need to figure out, well, how do we support all of them? And what is our kind of promise, right? Many people hold on to a car for a very, very long time. And it's quite a different equation from a phone to say, hey, that car you bought 10 years ago is no longer supported from a security standpoint.
Yeah, and we've just had the Windows 10 end of life cycle, right? Where now millions, tens of millions of computers are potentially not going to get security updates. Now, people update their computers, I don't think all the time, but a much quicker clip than they do sort of other devices. But a car, people can own that for years and years and years. And of course, the secondary market for vehicles is huge. I imagine most people buy their cars secondhand, right? So if you end up buying, and I don't mean this Ford specifically, but just use it as an example. If you buy a Ford because it's in the spreadsheet from several years ago, and then for some reason they haven't updated the rolling code mechanism and they don't plan to, sort of an old, out-of-date device in their eyes, yeah, that's going to be an issue. Again, we don't know that yet, but I can definitely see that being a problem as time passes, because this is still a relatively new attack. This attack is still being held somewhat tightly within a group. I mean, Daniel sells the tech to whoever for $1,000 or whatever. You do have to have some technical sophistication to use it. You have to know what a flipper zero is. You have to be able to install the patch. You have to be able to use it, that sort of thing. So it's not like anybody can just go and use it immediately. But there are indications this technique is leaking out, because, I mean, I was sent a copy. People are cracking it. So it's clearly not, the crown jewels. It's not being kept entirely under wraps. And this will land into the hands of, more widespread thieves soon, I imagine.
Are there any other techniques that you're aware of that actively work right now, or is this one that you're describing with the Flipper Zero, is that sort of the one that people are using?
I mean, it depends on the vehicle, but also, again, as you say, there are so many old cars going around anyway that these even established attacks are going to be there for a while. So there's a pretty common one now called a relay attack, which is basically, let's say your car is parked in your driveway and your keys are in the fruit bowl on the kitchen counter, and the fob obviously on the kitchen counter is what unlocks the vehicle. Thieves will use a device or a combination of devices to basically extend that signal from the kitchen out of your house to the driveway, then to the vehicle, so they can basically hijack or piggyback off that signal, then unlock and drive away with the car. We see footage, at least especially from UK police, where criminals are using this. I've definitely seen that, at least in 2024, but so many old vehicles going around that they're probably still going to be vulnerable to that. And I've spoken to people who develop and sell that sort of technology specifically for targeting luxury vehicles. So, like very fancy SUVs, blacked out windows, all of that sort of thing. So there's definitely still a demand for it. I think it's going to be really dependent on sort of the local circumstances. Are you trying to steal cars in a fancy bit of Los Angeles, or are you trying to steal cars in Germany or France or whatever? There's going to be variables there as well.
I think that's really interesting what you said there about luxury vehicles, because it's almost like when you target a person, right? It's like, do you just go for anyone and everyone with a kind of a phishing attack, or do you try and target someone who is particularly high value in your eyes? It's a little bit like that, where are you going to target just any car you come across and give it a go and see if it works? Or are you going to see that Bentley across the street and go, oh, that would be really worth my while if I can get into that one?
Yeah, I mean, there was a fascinating piece in Bloomberg Business Week, I think a couple of months ago, which is it actually showed the other end of the supply chain, which is a lot of the stolen cars in the States and Europe end up in West Africa. And they were showing that people will order, hey, I want an Audi XYZ or whatever. That'll be communicated to thieves in the US, who will go find that specific high-end luxury Audi, steal it, and then send it off to West Africa. So there's the whole other demand part on the other side of the world as well.
How much sympathy do you have for car manufacturers who are, essentially trying to play whack-a-mole with some of these exploits and, I guess, try and keep one step ahead of attackers?
Yeah, I mean, some sympathy. These are also massive, massive companies with a serious security consideration, and I'm sure many, if not all of them, or a lot of them, do take security very, very seriously. But it's kind of just the same as Apple and Google to a slightly lesser extent. Those companies are constantly battling with low-level hackers trying to get stuff on their platform. And then to the higher end, you have the Paragons and the NSO groups of the world. And there's this constant cat-and-mouse game between exploit developers, criminals, state hackers, and Apple and Google. I mean, the analogy isn't perfect because we're not talking about state hackers here, but I think that cat and mouse dynamic definitely applies, where it's not like Volkswagen or Peugeot are ever going to stamp out all technologically based car theft, but they have to keep improving it, and then they have to respond, and then the criminals will try to find something else, and that's just how security works, right?
Yeah, I think it's a case of this dynamic isn't going away, so make the investment and start getting comfortable with that sort of process, right? Because it's something you will just continuously have to do as a company.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, because of course I'm not in one of these car companies, so maybe what I'm saying is inaccurate, but as an outsider, you want to make it as expensive for the car thieves as possible. Right now, it's $1,000 or whatever to get this tech. That's really cheap. If it was $50,000, far fewer thieves would be interested, I think. And the same applies to, again, iPhone exploits. Well, a full iOS exploit chain is what, 5-6 million now, potentially more? That prices out a ton of hackers, and I think the same could and should apply to car hacking as well.
I know some car brands, like Volvo is a great example, where they're kind of known for their safety. But when I say that, I mean like real world safety. Like, they pass crash tests very well and this sort of thing. I wonder, as time goes on, do you think some car brands might become known for their cybersecurity? And could that actually be a selling point to consumers, as to say, hey, we take this seriously. Maybe we haven't been breached before. I wonder if you could imagine that becoming almost like a kind of brand, kind of trait that consumers are looking for as well.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe the consumer doesn't necessarily understand it as, oh, I'm buying this vehicle or avoiding this vehicle because of the company's cybersecurity posture. In their head, maybe they would just still bundle it in with security. Now, if there was a massive data breach from one of these other companies, and there was a wave of car thefts because of this Flipper Zero or Raspberry Pi attack or whatever, I think that could have an impact on customers or potential customers' perception of, is my car going to get stolen? Again, would they think of it in their head as, oh, well, that car manufacturer has really good API and locked down API permissions, so I'm going to buy... I don't think they're going to think like that. They're going to be like, that car doesn't get stolen as easily as this car, so I'm going to buy that one. It might just happen that the cause of that is the cybersecurity posture of the company. At least that's my read on it.
Yeah, I know some people, they buy phones knowing that, oh, this one is known to get 7 years of security patches or something like that. It's like maybe something similar will happen with cars, right? Where you at least know it's going to be hard to steal this for 6 or 7 years or whatever the manufacturer's promised in terms of patches. Okay, switching things up just a little bit. I'm curious, is the motivation behind most car hacks, is it always financial? Are they looking to, once they grab a car, to sell it? Or are there other motives? Like, would someone ever steal a car and then keep it, potentially, and then use it to drive themselves? Like, are there other motivations? We mentioned car location tracking as well. Like, does stalking come into play there? Just give me a sense of, do you have an idea of what the motivations are behind some of these attacks?
Yeah, I think it could be really, really varied. I mean, when I asked Daniel, the hacker who developed this Flipper Zero patch, he said, yeah, sure, people may be using it to steal cars. I'm sure he probably knows more than he's letting on. That often happens when you ask people in these sorts of communities, well, what's actually happening with the technology that you've made? They're a little bit shy to go into that. But he acknowledged, yeah, sure, some people may be stealing the vehicles. From what I've read and what I've learned from my own reporting, yes, it could be stealing to get the vehicle and then sell it overseas, as I mentioned with that Bloomberg piece. It could be simply to joyride the vehicle and then throw it away. I think it could be to steal valuable stuff inside the vehicle as well. That said, I remember years ago a family car where we got robbed and they stole stuff inside. They just smashed the window. But again, that was in the 90s. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're trying to just steal a bag from the vehicle, maybe a hammer is your best thing because you're not trying to start the vehicle. And that's where the technical stuff comes in, obviously. When it comes to keeping the vehicle, I just think that would be, from a criminal's perspective, a lot harder because, of course, you have the plates, you have to change those. There are still unique identifiers. If there is some sort of location data tracking in that car, the victim and the authorities are going to be able to just look at the map and go, well, there's the car, let's go get it back. So I think that would be foolish. But basically, any of the other ones, including stalking as well, if you want to unlock the vehicle and you want to put an AirTag in there or some sort of other GPS tracker, people often put those in the sort of wheel compartment or under the vehicle, but maybe you want to get the tracker inside the target's handbag or something. I can definitely see that happening as well. And when it comes to stalking, I've seen some insane and wild cases of the lengths that creeps, weirdos, and stalkers would go to. So it would not surprise me if one used some sort of technology. It would be rare. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw someone use something like this.
Yeah, you mentioned AirTags there. I hadn't even thought of that, but that is like such a deceptively simple way to track something, right? You don't even need to enter the car. It's the classic movie scene where, oh, you need to follow someone. You put the little tracker gadget on the rear bumper or the rear fender and you watch them go off. I mean, it could be as simple as that where, I mean, anyone could do that really, right? As long as you're sneaking up to a car and, yeah, make sure that no one's watching you.
Yeah.
Yeah, scary stuff. Okay, thinking about our listeners and kind of owners of cars, I'm curious, does car insurance, for example, cover this sort of thing? I know that car theft typically comes under a lot of car insurance policies, but if you explain to someone, hey, someone managed to break into my car using a device like this, I think, would that typically be covered? Or is this one of those classic cases of the legal system and the policy system hasn't caught up to what's happening today with technology?
So I don't know the specifics on that, and I think it would vary, of course, from insurance provider and to country. What I would say is, like, personally, I think it absolutely should cover it. This is not any fault of the user. It's not like they left their keys on the roof or whatever and someone grabbed it. Even with a relay attack, again, the one where the key fob is in the kitchen or whatever, I think it would be pretty hard-pressed for an insurance company to argue, well, it was your fault for leaving the key fob out. I could see them trying that, and like that's sort of in the middle somewhere. When it comes to this attack with the flipper zero and the predicting of the rolling codes, there is nothing that the driver or the user has done which will put them at fault. That is entirely a design flaw that is being exploited with the key fob system from the vehicles. So I really would hope that insurance would cover that, because again, the driver and the user has not done anything in that case to jeopardize the safety of that. I think it would be outrageous if it didn't cover it in that case.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess it's one of those things where as time goes on and maybe this knowledge becomes a bit more widely known, it's something which maybe consumers should start looking for in policies. Like if certain providers start introducing it or saying, hey, we do cover this, maybe it becomes something for people to look out for, right? And if you see a provider does offer it, maybe it's one more reason to choose that provider over another one. So yeah, something to think about. Looking ahead to the future, there's all sorts of stories right now happening about full self-driving, and even though it's not quite here yet, it seems like we're slowly getting closer to that. And also I see stories every day about autonomous taxi services slowly rolling out in new cities, particularly in the US. How do you think car hacking might evolve as those technologies start becoming closer to mainstream and part of our kind of everyday lives?
I think there's a good chance there'll be some sort of privacy scare around self-driving or autonomous taxis or something like that. Again, with like finding the location of all of these vehicles, I can easily see a big privacy scare like that happening with a Waymo or a Tesla or something like that. But that is not the same as the car hacking unlocking a vehicle. And there really is like a big separation there, I think, between privacy and security, and we'll still see car hacking, absolutely. I'm sure this tech is going to get into more people's hands and more vehicles are going to be stolen from it. But as more vehicles do become connected, as there are more autonomous taxi services, that sort of thing, I'm less thinking about the security of sort of those services and more about the privacy stuff, because there's an app there, so there's going to be AppSec as well, and I don't know, there's some stupid exposed database which has all the location of the taxis and or whatever it inevitably is going to be at some point in the future with these companies. For them, I think it's more a privacy thing than a security thing.
I think you're right. I mean, typically there is an app which you are using to hail one of these things, and then it's tracking your journey as you get to a destination. And so I could imagine a vulnerability is more likely to be on that side of things, right? It's the app developer who is then holding that data and that sort of thing, rather than perhaps someone remotely taking over a car that happens to be performing one of these journeys for a passenger. I think that's more likely to happen, at least in the short term, than that second scenario I just described.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was the CIA leaks from WikiLeaks years ago. Maybe it was that mentioned car hacking by the CIA, or maybe there was some other story. But yes, of course, literal car hacking where somebody can remotely take over a vehicle, it's not outside of the realm of possibility, but that is like, we're talking, secret, classified, nation-state stuff. That's not what these guys are doing. It's not what ordinary people have to worry about. They have to worry about, is some guy in a hoodie going to steal my car that I just bought, and now, damn, I'm out of my vehicle. That sucks.
Yeah, okay, I've kind of got a two-parter for you here. Is like, the first part is, we've mentioned some of these techniques today. Is this something that consumers should be worried about? Is it so commonplace that this is something that should be on people's mind, or is it rare enough that people don't need to kind of lose sleep at night thinking, oh gosh, when I wake up in the morning, my car might have disappeared from my driveway?
I definitely think people have to worry about the relay attack, where, again, the key fob's in the house and the vehicle's on the driveway. I do think people have to worry about that. They should probably Google the brand and model of their vehicle and relay attack, or look for some news stories and just see if their vehicle is one of the ones that's been stolen. And then if you're worried about that, be conscious of how you store that key fob. When it comes to this attack and the Flipper Zero and the rolling codes, I don't think people really need to lose sleep over it yet. Again, the attack is being held among not a super tight-knit, but like a relatively small group of hackers and tinkerers and criminals and providers. But, one of the people I spoke to, they said that they predict that Kia boys in 2025 will soon become Flipper boys in 2026. I think there's a lot of variables to that. Again, it's like whether the thieves are going to have the motivation, the technical sophistication, and the $1,000 to buy the tool. I don't think all Kia boys even have $1,000 sometimes. These are people from very impoverished communities who are stealing a car for the hell of it. But if they get $1,000, then they could start stealing some more vehicles as well. So wait and see on the Flipper Zero one, I think.
Gosh, I'm trying to think which name I hate more between Kia Boys and Flipper Boys. Both sound like awful boy band names to my ears. So you kind of preempted what I was going to ask as my second part of that question, which is, what can people do, right? Maybe to try and mitigate or prevent some of these techniques. You mentioned being very careful with your key fob and maybe where you put it in your home, but I'm curious if there's anything else you would give as just practical advice that people can do after listening to this show.
Well, this almost comes, well, it does. It comes from Audi itself. The spokesperson told me that they were, generally familiar with this issue of the rolling codes. And they said in their statement, quote, "The only way to eliminate that risk completely is to use a manual key," end quote. But that's a wild thing for a car manufacturer to say, first of all, that, hey, you have to use a manual key. Okay, but that's actually good, solid advice. Secondly, can you even do that? Can you get rid of your fob and get a manual key? I don't know. That's going to depend from manufacturer to manufacturer. But that is literally advice coming from at least one of these car manufacturers. It's like, don't use the fob and just use a manual key. So if you are really paranoid and somehow you're able to disable the key fob element of it and just use a manual key, that's a concrete action you could do that would eliminate the risk of this attack. It's just, that sounds like a massive pain. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't own a particularly modern car, but I wonder if the advice is also, keep on top of over-the-air updates when they're available for your car. If you have a phone with an app that lets you unlock your car, that kind of keyless system, keep the app up to date. Is that also advice that you would give, is basically just stay on top of software updates, whether it's on your car, whether it's in the app or something else entirely?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as you allude to, that applies to your phone, your computer, your car, the app for the car as well. We have seen some recent updates. I can't remember the manufacturer, but a over-the-air update to a car can actually impact it as well. And they've balked the update somehow, and now the doors can't unlock or whatever. And that happens, I don't know, it seems quite a lot. So I'm sorry, that's just something that car owners sort of have to deal with. Like, I would not say, oh, stop updating just on the off chance it's a bad update. It's unfortunately, you just have to keep up to date because the security updates are going to be better in the long run. Yeah, I agree with you.
Cool. Well, Joseph, thanks so much for your time today. This was a really good chat. Just to round things off, where can people go to find out more about you and also the work that you're doing and the rest of the kind of 404 media team?
Yeah, so you can go to 404media.co. That's our website. There you can sign up for newsletters to get an article every single day. Recent ones we just did about somebody disabling the LED in Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses, and that usually lights up when somebody's filming. This person is disabling it for $60, so now you can never be sure if someone's filming you with Meta Ray-Bans or not. A ton of other stuff. We send an article out every single day. So you can sign up on the website, or you can go check out the 404 Media podcast. Just search for that in your podcast app, and it's me, so you'll hear my voice again, and then Jason Kebler, Sam Cole, and Emmanuel Mayberg, my co-founders, and we chat about stories we do every week. So you literally can't hear those stories anywhere else. It's just with us.
Should we expect any more car stories in the future? You don't have to spill the beans on whether you're working on one of those stories right now, but is it a topic that you're still interested in as a reporter?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm basically waiting for this tech to spill out, and I'm keeping an eye on it. And when this leaks out and more people start using it, I'll absolutely be jumping on it to cover it. Maybe that doesn't happen, but that's what I'm looking at the moment.
Nice. Well, on that slightly scary but very fascinating note, thanks so much again, Joseph. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Well, thank you to Joseph for coming on the podcast. It's always great to have a returning guest and friend of the show back. Now it's time for Ask 1Password, where we answer all of your burning questions. Today, Trevor asks, I saw that 1Password announced a partnership with BrowserBase. Can you explain what you're working on together? Agony Aunt Roo, do you have an answer for this one?
So this one, I'm genuinely excited about this because I think that this is one of our first partnerships in this space that I think is really pushing the envelope of what 1Password and some of these new AI technologies can do together. So it's a little complicated, but we're working on something called Secure Agentic Autofill together. You've probably heard about AI agents, which are able to complete tasks on your behalf. Things like booking a flight or buying a new pair of Nikes or some other thing. You can set up an agent to go and do this thing for you. So this is really exciting because we want to make sure that your credentials always remain secure. That in order for these agents to act on your behalf, they do have to have access to the data that you use to log into these websites or the credit card that you use to pay for these things. And in order to make this secure, this is like just the perfect place for us to be playing as 1Password. BrowserBase is a platform for building and running browser-based AI agents. And with Secure Agentic Autofill, 1Password can securely provide credentials in a way that means the agent never sees them, never handles them. And that's what we're doing in a nutshell. So we'll put a link to our blog post in the show notes that goes into a lot more detail. We're right at the beginning of this journey. It's super, super cool to see how we're able to really add a layer of, I would say, natural security onto this brand new space that's sprung up overnight. So go check it out. It's very cool, and play with it and let us know what you think.
I love that. I think that this is one of those moments where we start seeing all of this, make everything AI, where you start seeing it actually become useful and start to see where you can start putting in the actual tools and the pieces and how security is important to get right up front and do it well. So I'm excited that we're able to be right there at the forefront of all of this. So if you have a question for us, you can send us a voice note or an email over to podcast@1password.com, or you can leave a comment on our community forum, 1password.community.
Okay, before we wrap up, we've got to play another round of Hack or Hoax.
Dun, 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 dun.
Ba-dum, 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 ba.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. So, here is a quick refresher on how Hack or Hoax works. Each episode, we bring you a strange but possibly true tale from the world of cybersecurity. It could be an actual hack, pulled straight from the headlines, or it might be something that one of us imagined during a fever dream. Your job is to work out, is this a real cybersecurity incident, or is it a complete fabrication? Is it a hack, or is it a hoax? But before we get into it, let's reveal the scores so far.
Oh gosh, don't do this.
Sarah, Roo, any guess on who's winning hack or hoax so far?
It's not me. My guess is not me.
I don't think it's me who got it right, and we're not tracking this because I honestly
we are
hope that
tracking
we're not
this.
tracking this because this has been a very hard game.
Data matters, Sarah. Sarah is on 3 and Roo is on 2. So it's pretty close.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't me.
Oh, I'm surprised it's me. That makes this more pressure. I don't like this now.
I don't like it.
You've gone and ruined it today, Matt. Thank you.
Oh gosh.
It's too much pressure.
Okay, so here we go. Hack or hoax. It started like any other night. A young couple in Houston tucked their baby into bed, turned on the monitor, and went downstairs. The soft glow of the screen reassured them until a stranger's voice crackled through. "Wake up," the voice said. Startled, the parents rushed upstairs, only to realize the voice wasn't in the room. It had come through the Wi-Fi baby monitor itself. Hackers had remotely accessed the device, gaining control of its camera and microphone. As the couple scrambled to shut it off, the intruder taunted them, shouting expletives. They later learned that the device had a vulnerability in that product and was disclosed by security researchers just months prior. The vulnerability was featured in a presentation by the researchers titled "To Watch or Be Watched, Turning Your Surveillance Camera Against You." The story quickly spread, sparking panic amongst young parents everywhere. Baby monitors, once symbols of safety, had become tools for intrusion. So is this a hack, or is it a hoax?
I'm pretty darn sure this is real.
I am too.
There's like, I'm like, yeah, right? Like I feel like we've heard about this for a long time.
Okay, you're both going true?
I'm going true on this one. Yes.
You are both right.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Woo!
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say wrong, and I was going to be like, I don't think so.
I don't like this one very much at all.
No.
Like, sometimes I understand the motives in doing some of these things, like money is a big one. This one, just horrible humans being horrible humans.
True.
Yeah.
Messing with people for the sake of messing with them.
Yep.
So, thank you everyone for listening, and a big thank you to Joseph for coming back onto the podcast and diving into car hacking with us. If you love the show, tell a friend. We would love to grow our audience and help more people understand cybersecurity. If you want to discuss anything from the show, you can also head over to onepassword.community or subscribe to the Random But Memorable YouTube channel, which includes some great YouTube shorts. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, we asked you to review the show, right? Do we know if anybody did that?
I remember a specific ask on that.
All right, let's look us up. I found the show. Oh, I'm going to give us 5 stars.
Oh, there we go. There. I have been a listener of Random But Memorable for a number of years and have enjoyed the show immensely. This season's episodes are no different. There is a new game at the end with a great jingle, but after the jingle is finished and they start the game, the listeners are treated with something almost extraterrestrial. It sounds like a horse neighing in Tin Pan Alley style. It's eerie, and it seems to be coming from Matt's mic. Is this on purpose, or is it a conspiracy?
What?
This person here, Norris, I don't know how, if I probably not. You got the notes and you went for it. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, but they came after
Love
me.
That
Wasn't the right one.
I know.
Oh.
Well, it obviously was Roo listening to the show.
Don't understand.
Nope, it wasn't Roo.
No one has rated this thing recently.
Okay.
Okay, look, team, all of you listeners out there, I need you to go and actually write a review here. The last review was great show with lots of security news, but also very entertaining. This podcast, Front Password, has a lot of great security news and tips. They bring in guests who are experts in cybersecurity developer tools and all sorts of interesting things you wouldn't find out about otherwise. They play some silly games and poke fun at each other. There's occasionally some rough language. Just FYI.
That one's on you, Sarah.
We need more.
I know. So I actually don't know if that's the case. I don't know if we need our users to go to the App Store and show us where to find the reviews, because I believe that there are reviews there. I'm
going to tell you what.
Find them.
If you can, here's what I'd like. Please write in and tell me how you actually leave a review for this podcast, because I couldn't even find the button in Apple Podcasts. So who knows?
Or if you want to be really matty, you could leave a review telling us how you left the review.
Let's do that. If we can get one of those, I'll be thrilled. 5 stars, please. Of course, 5 stars.
Okay.
I think that's probably it for today. Don't you think?
I think so.
All right. Love you both.
Love you both. Bye.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also leave us a rating or review. It's one of the best ways to support Random But Memorable, and we always love reading your feedback. We're also a community-led podcast, so if you have any questions for us, topics, requests, or even guests you want to hear from, please send us an email at podcast@onepassword.com. We read all your comments and look forward to hearing from you. We hope you join us in the next episode for plenty more random moments in the world of cybersecurity.